What's up, everybody? Matt Hunkler here, founder of Powderkeg. Super excited to be here with you, all of you Powderkeggers in Powderkeg Unvalley. This is our final keynote conversation. I can't believe we're finally here. Literally, more than 1,000 people have been through here in the last 2 days. I would not be surprised if we saw a spike here during the closing keynote. As we shut things down with someone I'm really excited to talk to. And I'm particularly excited because I haven't caught up with him actually in a couple of years. Obviously, we stay in touch on social media, and I'm sure we'll talk about that and growing your network as well. But this person is someone I look up to as really one of the foremost experts in building community. So I'm going to give people a minute here to enter into the stage. Just a reminder, if you go over to the right here, there's the stage, there's the chat. Give a shout out, just say where you're tuning in from, say hello, let us know you're here. And then in the Q&A, you can ask questions, which we'll have time to get into. So be sure to ask questions. I'll be getting into as many of those as I can. So excited to do this, excited to kick things off. And let's do this, Powderkeg. I did not press present on my slides, so you get to see this one last time today, forgetting to hit present. Our next presenter is actually tuning in from Montreal, and he has helped build communities and technology products for brands like Microsoft, FedEx, NASCAR, TechCrunch, and WordPress. Previously, he was the head of product strategy at WeWork and an advisor at TikTok. He has had startups get acquired. He has done some really interesting things, both in the Valley and in New York, but also in the Unvalley as well. Greg Isenberg is now the CEO of Late Checkout, and he is here today to come hang out with us and close down Powderkeg Unvalley with style. So please help me welcome to the virtual stage, Greg Isenberg. Greg, thanks for being here, man. You're on mute.
I was like, woo, it's so weird being on virtual events.
I know. I want to get like one of those MIDI pads so I can do little sound effects and be like, brr, 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 and
exactly.
Do it up next time.
But there's a chat on Hopin, right?
So there is a chat.
Like, let's get the chat. Like, this is the end, right? It's been a great couple of days. You know, we gotta get that energy back up.
I like it. Let's get it rocking. For those of you that are here already, make sure you move some comments into the event chat. Let people know that we're here in the keynote stage chat. So we're actually merging 3 different stages into one right now. So it might take people a few minutes to get here, but let's go ahead and kick it off. I see some folks, Christian, Jordana in there. What's up? We are going to talk all about accelerating career in tech, building networks, building communities, and sort of the future of what's next, which is kind of crazy, kind of a big year this last year. But Greg, I was wondering if you could give us a little context for your career. I mean, it's just amazing that you've worked with brands like FedEx and NASCAR, doing awesome work for big brands right now with Late Checkout as well. What was your first sort of introduction to tech? How did you even plug into tech in the first place? Because you're originally from the Unvalley, right? You're not from New York City or San Francisco.
Yeah.
Take us back to that moment.
Totally. My dad had a shop selling like almost like a general store selling like home stuff in Canada. And this was, for the longest time, Walmarts and Targets didn't come into our state, into our province, Quebec. Because there's like all these French people and they're like, we're not coming there. And then eventually they're like, there's like 8 million people here, we're coming in. So small retailers got down, including my dad. And I felt really bad. So I helped him kind of think about like, what if we, went online? So learned to code, built a website, started selling stuff on eBay, ended up selling millions of dollars of product by the time I was 15. So sort of took, obviously online was way bigger than his actual shop. So, that was my first foray. And what I loved about it is it allowed me, and this actually relates to like the Unvalley, it allowed me to be someone like living in kind of an obscure place. And when I say obscure, I mean like not, New York, LA, San Francisco, London, Tokyo, whatever, and connect with people all over the world. And that feeling, which I got when I was 13 years old, is something I haven't been able to shake off since.
You've certainly done a good job of growing your network, and would love to talk about some of your more recent strategies. Just as you've amplified huge following on Twitter, obviously have a huge following on your newsletter on Substack, late checkout. Plug there if someone can find that link and put it in the chat. The going back to that time at 13 and getting online, I mean, that kind of is like discovering the Unvalley at that time. Like when we talk about Unvalley, it's sort of this idea that you don't need to be bound to a place, right, in order to be connected. And it seems like you caught that bug pretty early on.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, it was a necessity. It was out of necessity, though, right? It was like, you know, I'm sure a lot of us in the crowd here, like the reason why you're here is because you want to be better and you want to be, you want to you want to unlock your potential. Like this is what this is about. This is unlocking your potential. And the second you realize that in order to unlock your potential, you need to be connected to, the world. That's when you realize you need to go out there and you need to be, you gotta build product that connects with the world. You gotta like put out your thoughts that connect to the world.
You mentioned building product, and I heard you say that you learned to code when you were 13. We had Ruben Harris from Career Karma here yesterday, and Scott Jones from 1150 Academy. Do you think it's important that everyone knows how to code?
If you would have asked me this like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have been like, everyone in this room, like after this, go learn how to code. And you're talking to someone like who, I went like in college, I studied computer science. So like, I believe, I dropped out, but like, I only have 3 classes left. So I basically finished. And, but today with like the rise of no code and low code, the Webflows, the Zapiers, et cetera, like, you don't need to learn how to code. You need to learn how to build product. You don't need to, learn JavaScript. You need to learn how to build community. So I actually think that, and this is somewhat controversial, but I actually believe that technology is, commoditized for a lot of businesses now. I'm not talking about like genomics or drone technology. I'm talking about like, if you want to build the next, Instagram, or you want to build the next, vertical network. If you want to build the next marketplace, like go grab, use Bubble and just like go grab that and like build something. So to answer your question, no, I don't think it's important for everyone. I think it's great to know, but not necessary.
In terms of building great product, obviously knowing how to use the actual tools like Zapier, Webflow, like you mentioned, is important. But what do you think are some of the more important, like macro strategies or sort of viewpoints with which to like look at product? Like when someone's building a product, what are the most important things to be thinking about from the start?
Yeah, I think it's number one, it's have a cohesive vision. It's like when I look at, the Mona Lisa, I understand what's happening here. And I feel connected to the artist, and I feel like I understand Mona Lisa, even though it's a mysterious painting. The goal is for it to be mysterious. And I think that the mistake a lot of entrepreneurs make is when they're building a product, they're trying to do too much. They're trying to be everything to everyone. And I think like the greatest products are those simplest products. It's not like the landing page with, that's super long and it can do everything. It's not like, I think the products that are like Swiss Army knives aren't going to win. I think the products that are just like super authentic, community first, that like are simple, that I can understand it, that I can go to my friend and be like, in 5 words, this is what it is. It's X for Y, or it's like the anti-Spotify, or it's the whatever, coming up with like a quick one-liner. That's what's going to scale. That's what's going to scale today.
What are some of your favorite examples of that?
So like favorite products, simplest products. I don't know. Let me pull up my phone. I would say actually one is there's an app called Honk, which is really cool. It's basically this like live like if you're on Google Docs and you're like, there's two people in there and you can kind of like live type.
Yep.
Like, what if there was a messaging app that was like live that, you could see the mistakes and it's all in the moment.
Mm.
And I think the best products start with a key insight about the world. And I think their key insight was, and maybe someone could find it and put it in the chat. I think it's like use honk, Google it, and check out their webpage. It's like super simple. I think their key insight was just like, IRL for sure, like we're not in the moment, but also like digitally we're not in the moment. And it's like when you're on iMessage and you see like those dot dot dots, like what's behind those dot dot dots? I think the greatest products come from this question around like, hey, what if we could extract that dot dot dot? What if we can do X, Y, Z? And then the greatest product people are able to take, that concept and communicate it in a really simple way.
Is there a place that you capture those thoughts, like as you have them? Like, are you constantly kind of generating these kinds of ideas, or do you put yourself in a certain mode where you're like, okay, I'm going to think about this sector right now and see where I can disrupt? Or do they tend to just kind of come by you? And I'm just a little curious about your own personal product process.
Yeah.
Generating ideas.
So I have 3 ways I come up with ideas besides just like having a bunch of wine and going for a walk. Number 1 is the unbundling of X, Y, Z. So, it's this whole thing, it's this whole methodology around, like it started with the unbundling of Craigslist. I'm sure a lot of you have seen, I think it was 2011, Andrew Parker wrote a post around how Craigslist was being unbundled, which basically means, for those of you who don't know, if you take like, on Craigslist, like the apartment rentals, that could be Airbnb, or, selling tickets, that could be StubHub. So these like parts that you can't, that Craigslist couldn't do, that someone can come in, make a 10 times better version, purpose-built solution. That's what unbundling is. So one of the ways I come up with ideas, and I've written a post on this called the unbundling of Reddit, is basically like thinking about, what are some large companies, and what are ways that I can, unbundle them. So that's number 1. The second thing is what I call the anti-incumbent strategy. And the anti-incumbent strategy is I'll take, a large company, for example, Spotify, and I'll be like, okay, let's say I'm passionate about music. I want to build something in music. How do I come up with like the anti-Spotify? What does that look like? What are things that, from a product perspective, that Spotify would never do because it would threaten their business? So example, like right now on Spotify, the social part of their business is just like a little like almost newsfeed on the right-hand side. It's like very little. They don't, it's not really core to it. What does a social first version of Spotify look like? What does a crypto first version of Spotify look like? What does a remix first version of Spotify look like? What does a verticalized Spotify look like? Like Spotify for classical music. What does that look like? So when you start asking yourself these questions, you end up coming up with really interesting ideas. And then the last way I come up with ideas is what I call, how do I even say it? It's basically like the X for Y. So something that works for, let's just say like Morning Brew. I'm sure you might know Morning Brew, like the newsletter. It's a super simple concept, but they do it really well. You open, you go to morning, you get this Morning Brew email, it's everything I need to know in business, and it's right there in email. And I feel smarter after I read it. But, how do you create a Morning Brew for another vertical? What about like Morning Brew for older adults? What would that look like? And you start like asking yourself those questions. And those are the 3 main ways.
That was perfect. Our newsletter is literally Morning Brew for the Unvalley.
Right. Yeah. So you were doing it, maybe you knew you were doing it, or maybe not. And I think this is something I encourage everyone listening to think about, to basically like take some of these frameworks and start just using it as a way, spending 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, 3 hours a week, just like jamming on this. Best case scenario, you create a 10 million, $100 million, billion-dollar company. Worst case scenario, you're like, it's fun to come up with ideas.
It is very fun to come up with ideas, and I like the idea of just drinking wine and taking a walk too. That sounds pretty nice. Sounds like a good after party plan for this. I would love to kind of. I know I'm jumping around timeline wise, but I'd love to kind of go back to where you went from 13 years old, learned how to code, started to kind of plug in and actually realize the internet is like this whole other world of potential. When was it that you really decided to go all in on the sort of like scaling software business?
Yeah. So I realized, so in my teenage years, I started a product design agency, realized I love product. And we created some really big products for people in the Valley. At this point, I'm like, this is going to be huge. I dropped out of school, millions of dollars of revenue. It's just like, a lot as a teenager in the early 20s. And yeah, it was pretty, sorry, what was the question again?
Just when did you realize you wanted to plug into more of the like high growth scaling tech startups?
So then I was seeing all these companies like that we were like building basically raise crazy amounts of money. And I was always I always thought basically that, these like this company backed by Andreessen Horowitz or backed by Sequoia, like they have all the answers. They must have all the answers, but they were coming to us and they were like, we need help. And once I realized that like, we were able to do it, I was like, why are we doing this only for others? So then we started building our own products. And that was the unlock when we did that. And then we started seeing some success. For example, we built, at one point it was the most popular financial, or one of the most popular financial education websites, financial education communities, which got acquired. We also built the largest video cooking site on the internet called Start Cooking at one point. So it's all using the same, what I do now, which is really like community first, pick a vertical, that sort of thing. But yeah, I was definitely hooked once I was seeing the scale.
Well, I think this is related to a question I see here in Q&A. How do you know when you're on to something? What is that initial traction to look for when making a product? Do you have like a particular bar or litmus test where it's like, okay, now it's time to explore this a little bit more?
I mean, you're not going to have a choice. Like, it's not like one of those things where it's like, for example, like Start Cooking, like, this is dating myself, but like Steve Jobs showed on the iPod video when it was released, like Start Cooking as like one of the prime examples. And like when Steve Jobs shows your product, like you feel really good. So you see these, like, I'm not saying like that's going to happen to everyone, of course, that level, but like you're going to note it, like look at the signs. Like the world is going to be telling you like in like kind of secret, mysterious ways, like keep going. And I wouldn't say that's necessarily like revenue. I wouldn't say that's necessarily like users. I would say it's these like subtle signs that you can just like pick up on. Yeah.
Are there ways you encourage people to explore these ideas? One of the things that strikes me is just sort of a lot of what you work on is community based, does have like a consumer facing side of things, which in the Unvalley, they definitely exist, but are few and far between. It's definitely a really strong center of gravity in Silicon Valley. What do you think are some of the things that we can learn from the Valley mentality and pollinate into Unvalley or wherever you happen to be? And are there things that you recommend to people to be able to build consumer products without raising a bunch of money?
Yeah. So on the, what can we learn from the Valley piece? I think the biggest thing I learned is, I used to think of myself as a big thinker until I moved to San Francisco. And just the ideas, like, I would say like think big and then think bigger. Like come up with your biggest idea, like write that big idea on paper and then like period, sleep at night, wake up the next morning and be like, okay, now how can I make it bigger? That's what's missing outside the Bay Area, and it's changing so fast. But I think that's the biggest thing. Um, I'm actually curious your thoughts on that. What do you think about that piece that I
Well,
just said?
it's funny because our closing keynote yesterday was the CEO of Ironclad and CEO of a company that just got acquired here in the middle of the country. And that was the one thing he pointed out. The CEO of PackSafe, which just got acquired by Ironclad, is now the Ironclad Midwest office. He said, I think big. Obviously, my business was doing really well. We were raising our Series B. We got acquired, and now I'm thinking even bigger, right? Because of that mentality and that culture. The other thing that came up is embracing weirdness, like being creative, like letting thoughts run loose. And it requires a certain amount of like vulnerability and like not making things precious. I think just ship it, right? Like shitty first draft sort of mentality, right? Of like get it out there. And that doesn't mean like put out low quality stuff all the time, but it put the emphasis on shipping, not on it being perfect. I think it's a big takeaway.
I want to talk about that for a second because I look up to, I don't know if you know Seth Godin, the marketing. Yeah. So what I love about Seth, he has a blog and he has been blogging every single, I think, business day for like 10 plus years. And it's wild. It's wild. And some of it are long blog posts and some of them are like short. But the thing that he talks about is it's not about how good the post is. It's about that I do it every single day. And I think another great thing about San Francisco or the Valley is when you look around, you see your neighbors just hustling, hustling, and hustling. And that pushes you to do more and more. Now, the world has changed, right? Like, I think we're online, right? So like, follow, I would say like my recommendation to folks is follow people who are going to inspire you on the internet. So if Seth Godin might inspire you, like put that person in your feed, like take out, things that are going to bring you down. Like maybe you take out like, I know you love, you might like football and you want to follow like all these football accounts. Like maybe you take them out and you just put like your Twitter feed becomes like just interesting, thought-provoking things that are going to make you do better.
I like that. What are some of the things that you've made a habit of? Are there things that you do every single day?
I mean, number one, I definitely just like show up every day. Like some days I wake up and I'm like really not, I'm not excited to work. Some days it's just like you're not going to be on every day. It's just natural with human beings. Let's normalize that for a second. So, but I like wake up, I make coffee, and I sit down and I get to work. And I think like that's the biggest thing is just like showing up every single day and the compounding nature of that. That's definitely number one.
Yeah.
Number two is having 30 minutes every single day to yourself in some like meditative state. That could be going for a walk. That could be, I have a sauna in my house. I go into a sauna. That's been really good for me. Whatever, listen to music, like drink wine, smoke a joint. I don't care. Whatever that like 30 minutes is that, is going to make you just like grounded. I think that will set you apart as well. Because you also don't want to like burn out and you also want to do this for the long term.
Yeah, I love that. We started second half of the day today with a group meditation at the end of lunch, which was a fun way to kick into the next gear. I really like that like 30 minutes with yourself. I'm not good at that. I definitely will let my calendar get the best of me sometimes. So that's a good gut check.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like, you just gotta throw it in throw it in the calendar, like every single day, same time, habits. Let's go.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned following people that inspire you. You've
Mm.
done an excellent job of building your network, and it seems like from all outside, perspectives, and times we've grabbed beers over the years at conferences, that the network is almost as important as the doing the work and having the ideas and shipping product. What's your kind of philosophy or approach to building a network and building relationships professionally?
Yeah, I think it's super important. Um, you know, it's hard to do it on your own. It's impossible to do it on your own. So I think that having cheerleaders and people by your side to give you that retweet, to hold you accountable, to inspire you is really, really important. You know, Previously, like pre-COVID era, like to me, what did that mean? It meant like living in New York, living in San Francisco, living in LA, going to these conferences all the time, like doing the circuit as they say, and that's what that meant. And today, I think it means a completely different thing. I think today it means if you're in tech, it's taking like Twitter seriously, and and oftentimes like writing a newsletter too. And I think it's coming up with insightful thoughts and putting it out there in the world and seeing what gravitates, and shamelessly DMing people, literally, hey, can we like, here's how I think I can add value, like let's hop on a phone call, or hey, like I reviewed your website and like here's the 4 things that you can change. I hired someone like who sent me a DM, a 2 months ago, and it was just like a Loom video that they just like cold DM me. And this is a person who has no connections, just a fresh graduate. Sent like one of the best looms I'd ever seen, like a video of just walking through their projects and how they can add value. And like turns out it's like one of the best hires like we've made at Late Checkout. And it's easy to not press that DM button, but actually going ahead and doing it, I think, super important.
I love that. I love the sort of bias for action, and just putting it out there and not getting too caught up if they don't respond or they don't respond positively. There's plenty of people out there as well. So looking to create value for the people that appreciate it and are going to add momentum and more things to celebrate with you as you both kind of excel in your career. I really like how you've kind of talked a little bit about pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Do you think that a lot of those things are here to stay? Or how do you think things will shift as things start to open back up again?
Yeah. So, I mean, I live in Miami, so everything, there was like no pandemic in Miami, which was wild. And there was 1,000 times when so-and-so well-known VC or so-and-so well-known founder was in town and like, let's grab beers. And like, in the new world, I'm like 99% time, like, unless like Matt, you're in town, or unless it's someone I know, I'd much rather do my like networking online.
Yeah.
It's just way more efficient.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. Like, I have to like go hop into an Uber or drive. It takes me like 40 minutes there, 40 minutes back, like sit in like a crowded restaurant, like, food's overpriced. Just like the whole experience. Like, I'm not saying I don't love like being in person. I love being in person, but I think that like what's changed is for a lot of us, we're going to want to be in these settings, maybe not maybe as not much as before. And just how people talk about like, yeah, we used to go to the office 5 days a week. Maybe now we go to the office 2 days a week. Like, that's more of where I think everything's going. I still fundamentally believe that if you're trying to build a network, the best way to do it is online. It's just the most efficient use of your time.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like you use the paradigm unbundling. It's sort of like the unbundling of the valley,
Right.
right? And as the valley continues to unbundle, what do you think are some of the most important skill sets that someone needs to have in order to accelerate their career?
I mean, some of the things that I look out for in terms of like qualities in terms of hiring is how to write well.
Mm.
It's like if you can write an email that's like succinct, to the point, readable, like maybe even a little bit funny, like brings a smile to my face, like that's important because no matter what role you're in, engineering, product development, product design, marketing, community management, operations, you will need to communicate with other people. Pre-pandemic or post-pandemic, like it's maybe even more important now than ever to be able to communicate well. And so I really, really, really value that. I don't know if you know David Perel, but David Perel has a fantastic course called Rite of Passage, where he basically teaches people on how to write for the internet. I recommend a lot of folks take it because I've seen like just in terms of our own hiring, like the people that come out of that program are just better writers. The other thing I should mention is there's a guy, I think his name is Dickie Bush. Is that his name? Do you know who that is?
I don't know. That sounds vaguely familiar.
So he does this thing called like, I mean, I don't even know what it's called. It's like maybe someone in the chat knows. It's like you write 30 things every single day on Twitter for 30 days. I think it's like ship for 30 or something like that.
Yep. That sounds familiar. I think Nathan, no, I'm not going to get his last name. I've come across his stuff before. I love that. I think it is Dickie Bush.
Yeah. So Google that, Google him. It's another program I really like, and I've seen a lot of people enjoy it because they're getting in the habit of like, okay, it's daunting to tweet. It's daunting to write content.
Yeah.
And it gets them in the frame of, okay, what is the type of, how do I write content that works for the internet? Number one, that's a whole new, like they don't teach you that in school.
No,
they don't.
They tell you how to write stuff actually the exact opposite of what works on the internet.
Exactly. It's like long and like they literally say did I lose your audio?
Oh, there we go. Like, sorry, I lost you for a second. You're back.
They literally say in school to do a minimum word count.
Right.
Like to me, they should be saying do a maximum word count. Like,
yep.
I don't. It's like the when I hire someone, I don't care like how many hours they took to do it. Like if you finish your job and it only took you 4 hours, like fine, you want to take the like I care about the outcome.
Right.
The outcome is always better, shorter, and more succinct.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and save some time to go deep on community. Why do you think community is having a moment right now in tech?
First of all, yeah, I mean, it's definitely having a moment. It's wild. I would say first because of COVID, I think when a lot of social interactions moved online, I think, having community was really important for a lot of folks. So that's number one.
Yeah. Number
two, because of how social networking has been designed. So like the background is, if you think about social media, like what is it? Like they basically, 2004 to 2017, it was just billions of people came online and were given microphones. And what happens when you give billions of people microphones? It gets really loud and noisy. No one and people don't want that. So that's what started the shift to like what, I'd call like fluid, spontaneous group, platforms. Discord, Reddit saw a surge, Fortnite worlds, like people are finding refuge in these places. Another reason is like, why is community been in the light has been, I think, because People, I mean, this is also somewhat controversial, but people have become less and less religious over time, and they're looking for connection in other places. It could be like brands, it could be, these different communities. As people, I believe that we're fundamentally designed and wired to want to be connected. And so I think that's a big reason as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought of that macro trend, but I mean, the data is there
Right.
to support that. And I would not be surprised if those things are causality and not just correlation in some sorts of ways. And certainly this Black Swan event has been insane in terms of what it's done. I think it's interesting to see people adopting it so quickly. People who weren't into online communities a year or two ago now seem to be spending a lot of time there. And I don't mean just Facebook. I'm talking about, maybe a specific Facebook group or a Facebook group that got so big that it became its own platform. For those looking to build community, do you recommend people build on existing platforms, or do you think that they should build something custom for their own community's needs?
Usually, to get going, honestly, use an existing, use where make it easy for who you're targeting, right? So if who you're targeting spends a lot of time on Facebook, then make it on Facebook. If you think it's Discord, make it on Discord. I think when you're first starting a community, what you really want is to get the confidence that you've built, you're getting community market fit. Now, once you have community market fit and you're like, oh my God, things are moving, this community is building. Okay. Then it's like, all right, maybe I want to move off Facebook for a bunch of reasons. And either you'll have a thriving community, in which case they'll follow you wherever you go. Or you don't, in which case forget about it anyways.
Saved yourself a bunch of money and time.
Exactly.
I want to get into rapid fire Q&A here soon because I'm seeing some really good questions. So if you have questions, type them in there. But I wanted to make sure I asked this question. Someone asked it on Twitter. They sent me a DM just asking about this. You've had some interesting ideas about funding communities. And I saw recently that you raised a fund specifically to invest in community-based businesses.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of fundraising and funding a community could potentially look like?
Yeah, I think the traditional way to do fundraising has been either you're bootstrapped, in which case you're constantly, it's usually tight constantly. Or you are on this VC trajectory where it's seed, Series A, Series B, Series C, and you raise from venture capitalists. And I'm happy that there's this new option for folks, which is community funding. And what that basically means is you're basically I have this set of customers, users, community that supports me. How do I give them more of a way to support me? And it's generally your top 1% of users.
Yep.
And sometimes that's in the form of something like Republic.co, I believe, which is a crowdfunding platform. Sometimes that's in the form of tokenized communities. So NFTs, or that give you access to potential communities. It could be a social token. So I create the @Isenberg token or the late checkout token, and that gives you access to this community. And I charge for that. It could be what's called a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, which is a new way of how companies are structured. I like thinking it's a very democratic way where you get the community to, I think about it almost like a co-op board, if you're familiar with that model, where it's a collective that basically people could vote, should we hire this person? Should we acquire this company? And that's an interesting way to do fundraising. I think about DAOs as kind of like, instead of a decentralized autonomous organization, it's kind of like a democratic autonomous organization. So these are these new ways. Yep. And I think it's great for everyone. It's great for the founder because the founder now has more options, especially Unvalley founders. It's good for the customers because now the customers have a deeper relationship with the brand or the company or the creator. And it's really early, like really, really early, but I'm excited to see where it goes.
I am too. It's fun to think about that, and that might be my wine and walk time today. Is to just think about DAO. That was the first time I heard about that, so I'm excited to check that out. All right, I'm going to shift into rapid fire. If you're ready for it, are you ready for it? All right. What is the ballsiest DM you've ever sent?
I mean, if someone likes one of, I think it might have been like Elon Musk or Bill Gates had their followed me and I was able to open their DMs. So that I said some stuff there. Maybe Kathy Wood also from ARK Invest.
Oh, wow. Nice.
She followed me on Twitter and I got access to her DMs. I mean, shoot your shot.
Do you know what you sent?
I can pull it up live.
Love it. While you're pulling it up, I'll ask the next one.
Oh.
Do you think product roadmaps are negatively impacted by startups setting out to be acquired as their primary goal?
Sorry, I lost you because I was deep in Kathy Wood's DMs.
You're fine.
Let me read it.
Yeah. Do you have the original DM to her? You can read that one first. Go for it. You go first.
Love to chat, Kathy, and explore ways to work together.
Love it.
No response. So anyone here knows Kathy Wood? Listen, she follows me on Twitter, so I know she doesn't follow a lot of people, so I know she's somewhat interested in chatting.
Yeah, come on, Unvalley. Let's make it happen. I love that.
Maybe. All right, sorry. What was your question?
Do you think product roadmaps are negatively impacted by startups setting out to be acquired as their primary goal?
The narrative is yes, that hey, if you're building a feature, for example, we talked a little bit about that, anti strategy, and sometimes, you in that strategy, you might come up with an idea that's like a feature, not a company. But the truth is these companies buy features all the time.
Right.
And so, I've sold multiple companies and some of those companies have been features. So I wouldn't let that just because people say you need to come up with a huge company doesn't mean start with it. Every company starts with a feature. So don't be, it's okay.
I like that answer. Yeah. How is product design changing now that companies like Apple are pushing privacy so hard in their Apple ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was on a call actually before this with someone from your team, Joe, and he was like, "Hey, I'm just kind of checking to see if you can get onto Hopin." He's like, "What browser are you on?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm on the Brave browser." And he was like, "What the hell is that?" And what the Brave browser is a privacy first, crypto first browser. I encourage people, that's built on top of Chrome. And it's basically, just more private and more secure and crypto friendly. Yep. And I think to answer your question, I think there's just going to be a whole new set of, privacy first product design companies that are going to come out of this. People want privacy. I know I do. And I think what's going to happen over the next 5 years is you're going to see some major hacks of some very big centralized companies. I mean, we've already seen it. Companies like AT&T have been hacked, et cetera. But I think it's going to continue to happen. And there's going to be more demand for privacy first product design.
Yeah, I agree. I've definitely seen that the last couple of years. I'm going to reword this question slightly. What is the best way for someone to contribute to their local tech community if they are an introvert?
I would say if there isn't already a like blog that covers it, start a blog. So like if you know miamitechnology.com. And even if there is, maybe do it anyways because you have a unique point of view on the world.
Yep.
And it's a great way to just meet people online, start a blog or Twitter account.
I like that a lot. What are we celebrating today?
What aren't we celebrating today? Is that the
I think
question?
that is the question. What are we celebrating today?
And my answer is, what aren't we celebrating today?
What aren't we celebrating? I like that. That is a good one. That is a good one. I think I definitely think there's a lot to celebrate right now, and it's cool to see how you have really taken the ball and run with it with community. And it's interesting because I think some people might look at that as quote unquote overnight success. Do you think that there are overnight successes in the tech industry?
I know a lot of well-known founders and investors in the Valley, and I haven't met one yet. So it's the greatest myth in tech is that people become overnight successes. I think it takes time, it takes iteration, it takes personal work, like working on yourself, personal development, it takes personal audience, it takes strength, it takes a support system. Yeah, that doesn't happen in 24 hours.
For sure. Well, obviously with the sort of trends we're seeing in the Unvalley and seeing places outside of San Francisco, New York, and Boston take off, what are you most excited about?
I'm number one really excited about hiring more diverse candidates. I don't love just hiring, you went to Stanford, you worked at Facebook. I think in fact, that's like an anti-signal for me, like I want you to be from a small town. I want you to, try a million side projects. I want you to, have a Twitter account, have a blog, have a Substack, getting your word out there. I want you to, contribute to GitHub and, or have a lot of projects that you're contributing to open source projects. So that's for me is the most exciting part of it.
That is exciting. Well, how can the Powderkeg community support you and what you're building at Late Checkout?
So Late Checkout for those of you who don't know, Late Checkout's thesis is that community-based products outperform non-community-based products. And we have a studio where we incubate our own community-based products. So we basically build these startups. We have a product design agency where we work with fast-growing startups and some of the biggest companies. And we have a fund where we, as you mentioned, we invest in community-based products. So, I mean, no direct ask besides like follow us on Twitter, follow me on Twitter. If you're interested, in working with us, be shameless in my DMs. And my ask for you, everyone who's listening, is to be proud of where you come from. I grew up here in Montreal, and I felt that I had to leave in order to to unlock my potential. And I spent 10 years in Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, and the truth is, I didn't need to do that. I could have just been where I wanted to be, and I have no regrets, but be proud of where you come from. And that's the first thing. And then all the stuff that you're learning on places like Twitter and podcasts and Substacks, tag a friend and help them join the journey so that your town, your city could be extra strong, so that you're sharing the love as well.
I love that call to action. I think it's the perfect way to bring our last keynote conversation to a close, man. Thank you so much for being here, Greg. It's been a lot of fun, and really appreciate you ending on a super high note with over 1,000 people who've been plugging in here over the last couple of days. Literally 10,000 plus connections being made in 48 hours. I think you being the one to close it down is very fitting. So thanks so much, man, and hopefully we can have you back here again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for listening and participating, and let's get it.
Let's get it. Thanks, Greg.
Take care, Matt.
Hey friends, don't go anywhere. We got a couple more minutes. I want to make sure we have a chance to celebrate together. Let's toast here. And Greg, if you can still hear me, you are welcome to pour a glass of wine and cheers with us. I do just want to celebrate a couple of the high notes over the last couple of days. You know, this morning we opened with Anna Mason, who talked a lot about treating cities like a startup and thinking through what the quote unquote tech stack is for your city. How are you getting your different organizations or your different technologies to work more closely, more integrated together? And so Anna was an awesome way to kick off earlier today. We had an awesome session with people talking about how to work with outsourced talent. Great things being shared there. I love this quote. It is important to have transparent communication with outsourced talent teams. And Matt DeCourcy, of course, from Startup Hustle podcast, shared that. But it was great to see that session with Calvin Hendricks Parker and Doug Allgood. I really liked this one. This was actually from West Central ISBDC, which is a deep cut tweet from them. But it's awesome to just see so many economic development groups here over the last 2 days, learning how we can accelerate things forward and really take things to the next level as our own individual tech ecosystems. I really liked just seeing all the love out there. If you enjoyed what you were doing here the last couple of days, please go to Twitter, tag Greg while you're at it, tag your favorite speaker or speakers, use that hashtag Unvalley as well. We really like seeing those, and we'll definitely amplify them. We'll include them on the site for Fall Unvalley. We're going to be announcing that date soon. It will be in October, towards the end of October. And we're going to be doing some interesting things. You know, obviously, public health permitting, we'll be doing some cool in-person meetups around the country. So imagine now, as we close, we all get to go to our local bar and find 50 to 100 plus other powderkeggers that we can hang out, grab a beer with, and celebrate. So we're going to be experimenting with some fun things with both in-person and virtual in the fall. So excited to do that. I see some chatter going on in the comments right now. Obviously, we had 3 tracks going at a lot of different times. Yes, there will be recordings to everything available by the end of June. We'll make that available in the Matches app, which we'll make sure everyone has access to as well. At least everyone who's here with us closing out Unvalley will have access to the Matches app, and you'll be able to go find library of content there. Ruben Harris yesterday, I just wanted to share this highlight. He emphasized how the individual instructor will continue to be huge in educating people. Those one-to-one instructions, Ruben really emphasized the importance of having mentors, having support networks of peers, people who are pushing you, people who are encouraging you along the way. I really love that share. Neil Miller shared this one from Gary V, which I loved. If the Unvalley doesn't capitalize on this decade, they need to reset their expectations. All right, I like that call to action. I really love the call to rise to the occasion. We've got an awesome opportunity here, everybody, and I've got so many great different social posts. But before we close today, I do just want to say thanks one more time to our sponsors that made this possible. We had literally dozens of partners, from community partners to local partners to national partners. But I want to give a particular shout out to our national sponsors here, 1150 Academy, 501c3 nonprofit. It is a coding and cybersecurity academy. Their founder, Scott Jones, was on yesterday, invented voicemail, invented Grace Note, and is doing amazing things, putting thousands of people through coding academies, which is a super relevant skill, as we found out in our other sessions. And then CLA. These folks were on a number of our panels as well. One of the top 10 professional services firms in the country. They're experts in helping tech companies with hiring, talent search, and finances. So definitely check out their expo booths. We're all going to be hanging out there here soon. IU Kelley School of Business, top 10 nationally ranked MBA programs. They had an awesome live podcast earlier today with Max Yoder, the CEO of Lessonly. And they've got a really great online MBA and evening MBA program. So definitely check out Kelley School. And finally, last but not least, but the VaynerX company, the Sasha Group. Really enjoyed having Mickey kick things off with Gary yesterday. Mickey Cloud, of course, out of Chattanooga, which is where the Sasha Group is headquartered. They help so many high growth startups, SMBs. They're really focused on helping mentor and brand and market entrepreneurs, funded startups, and those mature SMBs. And it's all about explosive growth. So we love that at Powderkeg, of course. Just a reminder there, if you want to spend time with Gary Vee, 90 minutes with Gary Vee, the 4Ds workshop, we're going to try to put a special Powderkeg 4Ds workshop together. It's a half-day workshop with other entrepreneurs or tech leaders. If you're interested in that, send me an email, matt@powderkeg.com. Would love to have you be a part of it. It'd be a lot of fun. Good way to kind of relive some Powderkeg Unvalley magic. And that is it. I want to bring things to a wrap. It is not quite happy hour yet, but it will be here in a matter of moments. I'll be grabbing a beer. I'll be hopping into some of the networking here to the left. Here to the left. Hit that networking tab if you want to go into the roulette style matching. It is a lot of fun to just spend 3 minutes rapid fire connecting with different people. So if you want to connect with more of the Powderkeg Unvalley community, hop on over there to networking. And then, of course, there are lots of people still at the expo. So hop into the expo, connect with these startups, find your new job, find your new organizations that's going to help take your startup to the next level. So good place to do that. And thanks again for being here through everything. I'm going to be taking to the event chat here shortly. I'll be checking out the Unvalley hashtag on Twitter and LinkedIn. See everyone here rocking it out. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's close enough. I agree, Frank. It's 5 o'clock here, Davey. Yep, let's do it. All right. Thanks, everybody. This has been great. I'll see you here in the chat. Thanks for joining our third Powderkeg Unvalley virtual. See you soon.